underestimated. Alrighty, this is a blood feud in the Alpha Conference, the oldest rivalry the Alpha Conference has to offer. And the Argonauts obviously continued their Alpha Conference winning streak up to 19 games in their win over the Machine. And it would probably be fitting that Squad Underestimated could perhaps stand against the Argo, being that they were the last team to beat the Argonauts in the Alpha Conference. So maybe they have that magic this week. Kirk Cousins gets the Buffalo Bills rolling into town. That's a matchup he and Adam Thielen should feast on. So I think that the Squad Underestimated looks good there. And I'm loving Squad's backs by the week more and more. I'm really starting to like the tandem of McCaffrey and Barkley. That's a PPL combo that can take him into the future. I mean, this guy could be playing in Pantheon Cups in the future with a running back stable like that. Those guys are able to stay healthy and produce. Obviously, you want to add things around them, and I'm looking at the wide receiver position. The big news is that Josh Gordon got traded to the New England Patriots. That was great news for the Patriots, great news for Squad Underestimated, and it's going to be interesting to see if Gordon can pick up that offense and become a key cog in that system for the Patriots, because if he's able to, he offers, Randy Moss-like upside. He offers, big playability on any play. If the Squad Underestimated is able to get that, they become a Pantheon Cup and Alpha Conference favorite, because, I mean, that guy is able to put up, a 30, 40-point game out of nowhere, and that can save you in a matchup. The other guys on the Squad side, maybe not as impressive. Marshawn Lynch, Jordan Reed, even though he's doing better with Alex Smith, he's an okay player. On the Argonaut side, Carson Wentz returns from his torn ACL. Of course, that ACL tear happened in the Final Four round against the Gaff in the playoffs last year. Wentz went down. It was a devastating blow for the Argo, and it may have played a pretty big role in them falling in the playoffs last year. But he's back now for all intents and purposes, and the Argonauts are excited, and the Philadelphia Eagles are even more excited, and they should be. This is a player who has a chance to be transcendent, and he's got a great arm, he's got great ability, and he has the right attitude. Wentz looks like the kind of guy that's going to come in there, steady the ship for the Philadelphia Eagles, and get them back on track. Other things on the Argonaut side, A.J. Green's 3 touchdowns on Thursday night was the stuff that the Argo are made of. I mean, when you have a guy that can go in, and they have guys across the board who can do this, that can basically take the matchup into their own hands, it makes the Argonauts very tough to beat. Devontae Adams is another guy that trade is looking better and better for the Argo by the week. I believe LaShawn McCoy is having issues with the ribs. And Devontae Adams has scored both games this year, so the Argonauts did well there. This matchup is actually going to be one that I think is going to be closer than some are predicting. I see that the projection has it as 131 to 120. I think it's going to be very close. Maybe I guess that is a pretty accurate projection. I think Squad Underestimated is going to come with some firepower. They always play the Argonauts tough. But in the end, I think the Argonauts are going to have enough to get by Squad Underestimated. I have the Argonauts winning this matchup 125 to 120. Moving on to our next matchup, we have the United Play as the Destroyers of the Omega Conference taking on the Alpha Conference's Baby Gas team in our interconference matchup of the week. Tom was Tom. Not as Tom as he could be, but he was able to get the boss enough points later in that matchup when they were trying to come back to help him salvage the win. Other guys that played an integral role for the United Players was Jimmy Graham. He actually showed up this week. He caught about 6 balls for 95 yards. Little things like that, are always a big help. And, I mean, the United Players got very fortunate, let's just be honest. The Steelers coach lost. That cost ATG pretty much the matchup. And the UP was able to sneak by. I'm looking at other guys, though, that they have on their roster, like Cooper Kupp, Emmanuel Sanders, guys who are playing pretty well and are getting consistent targets. That's one thing you kind of worry about in a situation like this is the guy going to, if he's not the #1 receiver, is he going to be able to make a play? And it looks like they are. So that's a big boost for the United Players. They were very busy on the waiver wire this week. James White, Bilal Powell, and Brandon Marshall. That actually helps their team. It makes their team better. It gives them some options and guys who are going to be on the field and produce. I like the Bilal Powell move because he's a very exciting runner. The Jets actually don't give this guy enough opportunities. I mean, and James White, he's as steady as they come. He's not a fantasy darling, but he's a guy that, I mean, you can expect that he's probably going to have a good shot at scoring pretty much any given week. So the UP did well there. Now, on the Baby Gas team side, heart-wrenching defeat. That Patriots coach cost them. They have been able to score fairly well all season long, but they're just not getting the wins. They're sitting at 0-2. They're the best 0-2 team in the league by far. Cam Newton had a great game. I think he'll continue to do pretty good, even though Cincinnati's defense played well against Joe Flacco on a Thursday. I think Cam will still be fine. And Dalvin Cook and Melvin Gordon are great. Are doing a great job, especially catching the football out of the backfield, and in a half PPR, that's really helpful for the Baby Gas team. Fitzgerald's injury is going to be an issue, and I've talked about the Cardinals' struggles moving the football. That affects Larry Fitzgerald as well, so it's going to be interesting to see if Baby Gas team is going to roll with them. And T.Y. Hilton, I mean, I think he's back to it now that Andrew Luck's back in the lineup, so I like him, especially against that Philly secondary. They gave up 2 75-yard touchdowns in week 2. I think that the Eagles' secondary is vulnerable, and that the Colts should be able to take advantage of that, especially with T.Y. Hilton's speed. That being said, this matchup breaks down as one that I think the Baby Gas team should be able to get their first win in. The UP was able to luck up with a coach win. I don't think that the Detroit Lions are going to beat the New England Patriots, and I think that the Baby Gas team has the better team, and the better team wins here. I got the Baby Gas team winning in a big one. I have him scoring 130 to the United Players 110. And moving on to the prestige matchup of the week, a matchup of Omega Conference lore. We have the defending Pantheon Cup champions, the Gaff Attack, taking on the defending Omega Conference champions, Appease the Gods. This matchup is as old as the Omega Conference itself, and the Gaff Attack comes in as huge projected favorites in this one. Matthew Stafford against the New England Patriots. That game will probably get out of hand, and Stafford will be throwing from behind. So he'll get a lot of garbage points and yards to help the Gaff out there. Todd Gurley's been Todd Gurley, and he's the best running back in pro football, especially with no Le'Veon Bell. Leonard Fournette is back in the lineup, and he got a week to rest his hamstring. I expect him to come out looking pretty good against that Tennessee front. And Hopkins is Hopkins. I mean, Hopkins is great. With that said, Juju Smith-Schuster is becoming a guy who you can't ignore. I mean, this guy is he's stealing some of AB's shine, and I think that's where a little bit of that temper tantrum came from last week, seeing guys like Juju get dumb. And I think that's going to continue because he's developing a pretty good rapport with Big Ben. Zach Ertz and Brandon Cooks are obviously great plays, and with Carson Wentz back in the lineup, that's really going to benefit Zach Ertz. On the Appease the God side, tough loss last week, but Drew Brees fell back down to earth. He fell back down to the guy he was last year. 16 to 18 points, no 300-yard games, no sexy big plays, just kind of grinding the game out and trying to get the win. That's the Drew Brees that we got last year. That's the Drew Brees we got last week. ATG needs the Drew Brees that he got in week 1. And the Drew Brees that we had before the 2017 season for Appease the Gods to get back to the Omega title in the Pantheon Cup. Jordan Howard, his usage is pretty up and down. Lamar Miller is a great player, but he's the Texans have been limited these first 2 weeks. But Mike Evans, he's really the biggest beneficiary of having Ryan Fitzpatrick in there, because once Deshaun Jackson stretches the field, Mike Evans can eat all around the field, so it doesn't matter. Allen Robinson is a target monster with the Chicago Bears, and of course Rob Gronkowski's Rob Gronkowski. He's gonna do his damage. He's gonna run a few cats over, and that Detroit secondary, I mean, they're not all that great. Although they held the last tight end they played in check, I don't think that they're gonna have the same success with Rob Gronkowski. That being said, this matchup sets up pretty nice for the Gaff. Minnesota coach against the Bills. The Rams defense has been awesome. Brandon Cooks and Todd Gurley. It just looks really good for the Gaff, and I think that's about right. I've got the Gaff Attack winning this matchup 125 to 118. All right, so the Gaff wins the prestige matchup of the week. Everybody have a good week, and may the odds be ever in your favor.